Our last tab or our last foldable on this is using 2 points that the line passes through. So 2 points on the line, and if we have 2 points on a line, then we can write our linear equation in slope-intercept form. So that's what we're going to do as our last part of this exercise. So open up that flap. Okay, so this is the last type of problem that you will encounter when we just have 2 points. So now we don't have a slope, we don't have a y-intercept, we just have 2 points, but we know that we can calculate slope from 2 points. So this is a little bit more time intensive, so it's going to take us a few minutes to go through this, but you know all of the stuff that we need to do. So first of all, we need to recall that slope equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So using that information, we can designate our point as x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, so that we have clear indications on which numbers we're going to use as we substitute them into this equation. So our slope ends up being m equals y sub 2 we said was 13, and remember you can designate either point either way as long as you keep them consistent. So our y sub 2 is 13, our y sub 1 is 4, divided by our x sub 2 is 6, and our x sub 1 is 0. So we're just following this equation exactly as it's written. So once we have that, then we can rewrite that doing the math. 13 minus 4 gives us 9 divided by 6. And we can further simplify that down because 3 goes into both 9 as well as 6. So 3 times 3 gets us 9. So we're going to identify our numerator as being 3, and 3 times 2 gets us 6. So our denominator becomes a 2. So now we have our slope equals 3 divided by 2. Okay, so now we can use the slope-intercept form and figure out what our b is, and we can use either one of the 2 points. I like point 1 because it has a 0 in it, so that's the one I'm going to use. Okay, so as we mentioned before, all we have to do is substitute our values into our x and our y, and we'll use the point. I'm going to use point number 1 just because, like I said, it has a 0 in it. So my y value there is 4. So 4 equals, my slope is 3/2, and my x is 0 plus b. Okay, so now that I know that, I get 4 equals 3/2 times 0 is just 0 plus b. So that gives me b equals 4. So now I have my equation because I have both my slope and my y-intercept. So now when I substitute them into that equation, I end up with y equals 3/2 x plus 4. And we're done. Now I'm challenging you to use the alternate method using the point slope method and see if you can come up with the same answer. Okay, our last example, example number 8, is written in a way that we have not learned about yet. It's written in function notation. So rather than trying to explain that at this point, because we're not ready for it yet, I simply wrote the points that are based on this function notation. So this particular function really says f of 6 equals -4. So 6 is our x value and -4 is our y value. But don't be concerned with that right now because we have not learned that yet, and I'm not going to worry about it until next unit. And then also this particular function says f of 9 equals -9, where 9 is our x value and -9 is our y value. So knowing that you have these 2 points, we're going to write our linear equation using these 2 points. So once again, we need to solve for our slope. So we're going to use our slope equation, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1, divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And I have to tell you, I'm getting pretty tired of saying that particular formula, but eventually I won't have to because you're all going to say it all by yourselves. Anyway, our slope formula is what we're going to use in order to calculate our slope, and we have to designate our points just so that we don't get ourselves confused. So if you are certain that you're not going to get yourself confused, then you don't have to designate them. I do it just on precaution. So now I have m equals, my y sub 1 is negative 1 minus, and my y sub 2 is negative 4, all divided by my x sub 2, which is 9, minus my x sub 1, which is 6. Now we need to rewrite some of this because we know that a negative and a negative actually equals a positive. So we want to rewrite it so that it's very clear what we're going to do in our operation. So we have negative 9 plus 4 divided by 9 minus 6. So negative 9 plus 4 gives us a negative 5, and 9 minus 6 gives us a 3. So our slope is simply negative 5 divided by 3. And we can write that over here so that we don't have to worry about losing it as we erase the right side so that we can do some more work. Okay, so we have our slope and we have a point. So recall that we can use that information and just rewrite our slope-intercept form using what we know. So we have y equals m, which is our negative 5/3. Ooh, that didn't write very well, did it? Okay, so slope equals negative 5/3 x plus our b. Okay, so we're going to use one of these 2 points. I don't care which one you use. I think I want to use the first one. They're smaller numbers. I don't care which one you use. It doesn't really matter. But you need to make sure to designate appropriately your x and your y. So my negative 4 is my y value, so I'm going to substitute that in for my y over here, equals negative 5/3 times my x value, which is 6, all plus b. Okay, so we have our negative 4 is going to stay there, and now we have to do this math of negative 5/3 times 6 divided by 1. So another way you can do this is you can simplify this way because 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 2 times. That might be a little bit easier to simplify. It's called cross simplification before you move on to the next step. So then we have our numerators multiplied together, which is a negative 5 times a positive 2 that gives us a negative 10, and a 1 times a 1, which just gives us 1. So we can write it over 1, but it doesn't really matter. So now we simply have to get b by itself. So we have negative 4 equals negative 10 plus b. To get b by itself, we have to get rid of the negative 10. And because it's subtraction, this negative just means subtraction, we're going to get rid of it by adding the 10 to both sides. So when we add 10 to both sides, we get 6 equals b. So now we can write that over here. So we have b equals 6. We have our slope as being negative 5/3. And with all that information, we now can write our equation y equals negative 5/3 x plus 6. So that's the answer for this particular example. Now again, I'm going to challenge you to take all of this work and instead of using the work of applying it to the slope-intercept form, I want you to use the point-slope form and do that alternate method. So in your notebooks, make sure to identify a location for example 8 and do that point-slope form so that you can have another method of doing the same thing. Here are the answers for the alternate methods for both example 7 and example 8. I hope you were able to do that work on your own, but in case you weren't, here it is so that you can have it written down. You will be using all of these methods over the next few days, so make sure to reference back to your notes and follow these examples. Here are the answers to the last 4 problems. you notice that the first thing we had to do was solve for the slope. Once we got the slope, we could use either method. We could use the point slope method or the slope intercept method and try to find the b. Again, down here, solve for slope. It's use the point slope method or the point slope method. Either way, the answers are still the same. So solve for slope, use either the point slope or the slope intercept, and you come up with the same answers.